This is Sandra Jewell of Pastor J Live. We are starting a new segment entitled Ask the Therapist. Ask a Therapist segment will give you basic information about counseling or therapy. And it's the same thing, just to use different words for the same thing. What is counseling? A lot of people want to know. Counseling is simply sitting down, talking to someone who has your best interest in mind and who's been trained to help you move from point A to point B. Who goes to counseling? Do this for me. Take a deep breath, hold it, let it out. I want you to know anyone who breathes goes to counseling. Every age group, every culture, every race, people with all type of beliefs come to counseling. Why do you go to counseling? That's the reason you go to counseling. Like I said in the beginning, it is to listen to some directions and set some goals with a person who has your best interest and who's trained in helping you to get the best out of life, help you to be the best that you can be. Now, this segment is for awareness purposes only. It is not intended as a diagnosis for a mental, emotional, spiritual issue. It is simply for awareness purposes so that you will be learned about what counseling entails. Now, you may wonder, how long is counseling? How long do I have to go? Uh, when do I have to go? The first thing you do when you decide that you want to talk to someone about an issue in your life is to meet that person to see if your personality and theirs mesh. And generally, that's called a free consultation. Once you decide that, yep, this is the person that I want to come talk to periodically, you sign what's called an informed consent. The informed consent has in there generally the days you will come, the time you will come, the cost, how you will pay, information about what happens if there are emergencies, information regarding the type of therapy or counseling that will be done. You agree to your involvement in the process. You agree on the number of sessions. You agree on everything that's going to impact that counseling session. That's the first thing you take care of when you're going for counseling. Because there are many type of counselors, therapists, and there's a many type of counseling. There is the person-centered counseling, which touches on a lot of feelings and emotions. There is the behavior therapy or counseling that deals with actions that you might or might not want to take, should or should not have taken. Reality therapy is which is my favorite. It deals with choices we have made, why we made them, and maybe what we need to make. There's feminist therapists. Feminist therapist is not just for women, but it deals with the biological makeup of the female part of us. You know that each one of us have a male side, the tough part, and we have the female side, which is the gentler side. And that's in males and females, but that's feminist therapy. Cognitive therapy deals with your beliefs, your cognitions, the way you think about things, why you think that way, and whether you want to keep on thinking that way or whether you want to change your thinking because you're a different person than maybe when you first started having those thoughts in your consciousness. And sometimes there's unconscious. There's family therapy. If there's an issue going on with a person, many times it's just not involving that individual, but somehow the whole family framework has an impact on how why that person is acting a certain way. There is another type of therapy that's called existential. Existentialists deal with freedom, the oneness of yourself with the rest of the universe. Then there is Gestalt therapy that deals with your day to day, moment by moment operation. That's the postmodern that helps you to develop your self image, your self ID, your self concept. And the master of them all is psychoanalysis. Now, we have seen on TV the person goes to a therapist and they lay on the couch. That's psychoanalysis. That is the father of counseling, of therapy, that was developed by Sigmund Freud. Most counselors that I know do not use this method. This is generally used with someone who has a degree in psychiatry. A psychologist, a therapist, a counselor is not necessarily a psychiatrist. A counselor, a therapist, a psychologist cannot prescribe medications. However, a psychiatrist can prescribe medications. A psychiatrist can prescribe medications. I try in my practice to stay away from medications as much as possible. If I find that the person needs to be medicated, I refer them to one of my peers who is a psychiatrist. And let me say right here, when a counselor or therapist does any referring, or a psychiatrist for that matter, does any referring, they don't get kickbacks. They are not paid to refer. What we want to do is send you to the best person to help you with your situation. There are many things that happen in counseling. Some counselors want you to journal. Some of them want you to read something. Some of them do role playing. Some of them take you to the place where you've experienced your issues. You do stories, you do music, whatever is most apropos for that situation and that counselor to be the best them that they can be. That's my motto. I help you to be the best you that you can be. Therapy, in my practice, I see, I do parenting, I do relationship counseling, dealing with couples and with families, individual counseling, group counseling, especially with women, and I work with senior citizens. Let me hasten here to say that if you have a senior in your life who is not functioning the way they used to, not as active as they used to be, it does not necessarily mean that that is because they are aging. Aging is not a precursor to a person losing interest or what we might call depression. But to be clinically diagnosed as depression, a person must meet certain criteria. So make sure that before you say, "Oh, it's just old age, it's just the way it is." No, take them to your medical practitioner to make sure that that is what's going on with them. They may need some short-term use of some medications. What issues do we deal with in counseling? We deal with abuse issues, anxiety, bipolar, delayed development. Now, I hear people talk about saying you're retarded or you're retarded. We don't use that word anymore. We use delayed development. We in counseling we work with depression, gerontology, or aging issues, post-traumatic stress disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder is getting a lot of attention these days in the media because the military is realizing that many of the service people come back are dealing with PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. But that is not the only time that a person may experience PTSD. If you've had any trauma in your life, rape victims, molestation victims, those victims who are homeless, people who have been through hurricanes, who have storms of life, who have been in a major fire or plane crash, they can also experience post traumatic stress disorder. You deal with just pain, stress management, career goal setting, drug issues, all those issues, any issue that you're dealing with in life is discussed in counseling. In my practice, I mainly deal with, I told you, the parenting, the relationship, individual. I have groups and senior citizens. Where do I counsel? Sometimes in my office, sometimes in the park, sometimes in the mall, sometimes at the client's place, wherever is most comfortable and advantageous for that client to help them to become the person that they want to be, to deal with the issues that they want to deal with. That's where I counsel. How many sessions? That's what we deal with in the informed consent right up front. I also do counseling by email and counseling by phone. And that's a little more touchier because there are different laws that need to be covered, abide by, before we can do the email or the phone counseling. Counseling is something that all of us need from time to time. I hope you benefit from these upcoming segments on Ask the Therapist. We're going to talk about some of the different issues that are discussed in counseling, mainly in my counseling, and what the criteria is for meeting though the diagnoses. You have to, if you're depressed, it has to have been you've been going through it within a certain time frame. If you are suffering with bipolar disorder, it must have all of it must reach certain parameters. So, with that, I just want to let you know, look forward in the coming weeks to hearing information, 3 minutes on different issues as we get into Ask the Therapist.